The weathered cowboy stood at the edge of the makeshift aisle, his calloused hands trembling slightly as he watched the woman in the faded white dress walk toward him. Her face a careful mask that couldn't quite hide the sadness in her eyes. Ethan Douglas had known heartache in his 31 years, but he had never seen anyone wear grief quite like Tessa Reynolds wore hers, as if it had become part of her skin, woven into the very fabric of who she was now. Fort Smith, Arkansas had seen its share of unusual weddings in the summer of 1878, but this one felt different to the small gathering of witnesses. The bride moved mechanically, her steps measured and empty of joy. When she reached Ethan's side, she looked up at him with those hollow eyes, and he saw something flicker there, something that might have been hope buried under layers of pain. The preacher's words washed over them like water over stone. Ethan barely heard them. He was too focused on the woman beside him, this stranger he was binding himself to, wondering if he had made a terrible mistake or the best decision of his life. When the preacher asked if he would take this woman as his lawfully wedded wife, Ethan's voice rang out clear and strong despite his doubts. "I do." Tessa's response came quieter, barely above a whisper. "I do." The preacher pronounced them man and wife, and Ethan leaned in to kiss his new bride. Her lips were cold against his, and she didn't respond to the touch, simply accepting it like she accepted everything else, with that resigned sadness that made his chest ache. It had been 3 weeks since Ethan first laid eyes on Tessa Reynolds. He had been in town picking up supplies for his ranch when he noticed the commotion outside the general store. A woman stood on the wooden sidewalk, her dress torn at the hem, dust covering her dark hair. She was arguing with the store owner, her voice rising in desperation. "Please, I can work. I can clean, I can keep your books, anything. I just need a place to stay and some food." The store owner, a portly man named Jenkins, shook his head firmly. "I got no work for you, miss. Try the saloon if you are that desperate." The dismissal in his voice made Ethan's jaw clench. He stepped closer, getting a better look at the woman. She was young, probably mid-20s, with features that would have been beautiful if not for the exhaustion etched into them. But it was her mouth that caught his attention. She tried to smile at Jenkins, trying to charm him into reconsidering, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. It was broken, fractured, like something inside her had shattered, and she was just going through the motions of what a smile should be. "I am not that kind of woman," she said quietly, her shoulders slumping. Jenkins shrugged and went back inside his store. The woman stood there for a moment, looking lost before she sank down onto the steps, her head dropping into her hands. She didn't cry, though. Ethan noticed that. She just sat there, defeated but dry-eyed, as if she had no tears left to give. He should have walked away. He had his own problems, his own ranch to run, his own loneliness to contend with. But something about her broke through the careful walls he had built around his heart since his mother died 3 years ago. He found himself walking over, his boots heavy on the wooden planks. "Excuse me, miss." She looked up, and up close, he could see the fine lines around her eyes, the way her cheekbones stood out too sharply, as if she hadn't been eating properly. Her eyes were a deep brown, pretty but empty. "I am sorry to bother you," Ethan said, removing his hat. "I could not help but overhear." "Are you looking for work?" She stood quickly, brushing dust from her skirt. "Yes, sir, I can do most anything. I can cook, clean, so I can read and write and do figures. I am a hard worker, I promise you that." "What is your name?" Tessa Reynolds." "Where are you from, Miss Reynolds?" Her face shuddered, that broken smile appearing again. "Back east, but I would rather not talk about that if you do not mind." Ethan studied her for a long moment. She held his gaze despite the discomfort he could see in her eyes. There was pride there, buried under the desperation. He liked that. It spoke of strength. "I have a ranch about 5 miles outside of town," he said slowly, knowing even as he spoke that he was probably making a fool's decision. "It is not much, but I run cattle and have been managing on my own since my hired hand left last month. I could use help with the cooking and the house. The work is hard and I cannot pay much, but you would have a roof over your head and 3 meals a day." Hope flared in her eyes, bright and painful to witness. "Truly, you would hire me?" "On one condition," Ethan said. "I need to know you are not running from the law. I am offering you honest work, and I need to know you are honest in return." The hope dimmed slightly. "I am not a criminal, Mr. Douglas. Ethan Douglas, Mr. Douglas. I have done nothing illegal. I am just trying to start over, to leave my past behind." He should have asked more questions. Any sensible man would have. But there was something about her that called to him, something broken recognizing something broken. He had been lonely for so long, rattling around in that ranch house with only his thoughts for company. At least with another person there, maybe the silence would not feel so heavy. "All right then, Miss Reynolds. You are hired. We can head out this afternoon if you are ready." "I am ready now," she said quickly. "I have everything I own right here." She gestured to a small carpet bag sitting on the steps beside where she had been sitting. The ride out to the ranch had been quiet. Tessa sat beside him in the wagon, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes on the horizon. Ethan tried to make conversation a few times, asking her about her journey to Fort Smith, if she had family, what kind of work she had done before. She answered in short, clipped responses that made it clear she did not want to talk about her past. The ranch house was modest, a 2-story wooden structure with a wide porch and shutters that needed repainting. The barn stood about 50 yards away, and beyond that stretched the grazing land where his cattle dotted the landscape like brown and white stones. It was not much, but it was his, built with his own hands over the past 5 years. "It is nice," Tessa said quietly as they pulled up to the house. "Peaceful." "I hope you think so after you have been here a while," Ethan replied, climbing down from the wagon. He offered her his hand and she took it, her fingers small and cold in his rough palm. He showed her around the house. Downstairs was a main room with a fireplace, a kitchen with a cast iron stove, and a small room he used as an office. Upstairs were 3 bedrooms. His was at the far end of the hall. He showed her to the room at the opposite end, a small space with a window overlooking the front yard, a bed, a dresser, and a washstand. "This will be your room," he said. "I will respect your privacy, Miss Reynolds. You have my word on that." She turned to look at him, really look at him, for the first time since they met. "Why are you being so kind to me? You do not know anything about me." Ethan leaned against the doorframe, considering his answer. "I suppose because someone was kind to me once when I needed it most. My mother taught me that we are all just trying to get by in this world, and sometimes the best thing we can do is help each other along the way." That broken smile appeared again, and this time he saw her eyes fill with tears that she blinked back furiously. "Thank you, Mr. Douglas. You will not regret this, I promise." But he did regret it, or at least questioned it, over the next 2 weeks. Tessa was an excellent worker. She kept the house spotless, cooked meals that were better than anything he had made for himself, and even helped him with some of the ranch work when he was short-handed. But she barely spoke unless spoken to, and that smile, that awful broken smile, appeared whenever he tried to engage her in real conversation. He learned a few things about her in those first weeks. She was 24 years old. She had come from Missouri originally. She had been married before. That last piece of information came out one evening when they were sitting on the porch after supper. Ethan had been talking about his plans to expand the herd, and somehow the conversation had turned to the future. "You ever think about getting married, Mr. Douglas?" she asked suddenly. The question surprised him. "I suppose I do sometimes. Gets lonely out here, but I have not found the right woman, I guess. What about you?" "I was married," she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the chirping of the crickets. "He died. I am sorry for your loss." She was quiet for so long he thought she was not going to respond. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, hollowed out. "I am not. He was not a good man, but I am sorry for what I lost along with him." "What did you lose?" "Myself. The person I used to be. The person who knew how to smile without feeling like a liar." The raw honesty in her words hit him like a physical blow. He turned to look at her, and in the fading light he saw tears streaming down her face, silent and steady. "Miss Reynolds." "I had a daughter," she continued, as if a dam had broken inside her. "She was 2 years old, the prettiest little thing with curls like sunshine and a laugh that made everything better. When he died, when my husband died, his family came. They said I was unfit. They said I could not take care of her on my own. They took her from me. They took my baby and I could not stop them. I tried, I fought, but I had no money, no family to stand up for me. They said terrible things about me in court, lies mostly, but enough truth mixed in that the judge believed them. They took her, and I will never see her again." Ethan's heart clenched. He wanted to reach out to comfort her, but he did not know if his touch would be welcome. "That is why you came to Arkansas, to start over." "To run away," she corrected bitterly. "To run away, because I could not stand to be in the same state as my daughter, knowing she was growing up without me, probably being told I did not love her, or that I abandoned her. I left because every day I stayed was another day I thought about walking into the river and not walking back out." The starkness of that statement stole his breath. "Miss Reynolds, Tessa, I am broken, Mr. Douglas," she said, finally looking at him. "I do not know if I can ever be put back together. Some days I think maybe I can survive this, maybe I can build a new life. Other days I wake up and cannot remember why I should bother trying. You have been so kind to me, giving me work and a place to stay, treating me with respect. But you should know what kind of person you have living under your roof. I'm not sure I will ever be whole again." They sat in silence for a long time after that. Ethan thought about his own losses, his father who died when he was young, his mother's slow decline from illness, the loneliness that had become his constant companion. He thought about what it meant to be broken, to wake up each day and have to choose to keep going. Finally, he spoke. "I think we are all broken in our own ways, Tessa. Some of us just hide it better than others. You have survived something terrible. You are still here, still trying. That takes more strength than you probably give yourself credit for." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I do not feel very strong. Strength is not about never falling down. It is about getting back up even when you do not want to." Something shifted between them that night. Tessa still kept her distance, still wore that broken smile, but there was a new openness to her. She would share small things about her life before, carefully avoiding talking about her daughter, but telling him about growing up on a farm, about learning to bake bread from her grandmother, about the books she used to love reading. Ethan found himself looking forward to their evening conversations on the porch. He told her about building the ranch, about his dreams of creating something lasting, about the loneliness that sometimes threatened to swallow him whole. They were two broken people sharing space, and somehow that made the brokenness feel less overwhelming. It was Ethan's neighbor, a rancher named Samuel Crawford, who planted the seed of the idea. Samuel stopped by one afternoon about a month after Tessa had come to work at the ranch. The older man looked at Tessa as she served them coffee, watched her retreat to the kitchen, and then fixed Ethan with a knowing look. "You are playing with fire, son," Samuel said bluntly. "Having an unmarried woman living here with you, People are going to talk." "Let them talk," Ethan replied, his jaw setting stubbornly. "She is my employee. There is nothing improper happening." "I believe you, but you know how folks are. They see what they want to see. That girl seems like she has had enough trouble in her life without adding more to it because of wagging tongues." After Samuel left, Ethan could not stop thinking about his words. He had not considered how this arrangement might look to others, how it might affect Tessa's reputation. She had already lost so much. He would not be responsible for her losing anything more. That evening, as they sat on the porch, he broached the subject carefully. "Tessa, I need to talk to you about something." She set down her mending, giving him her full attention. "What is it?" "Samuel Crawford came by today. He pointed out that people might talk about you living here, about us being unmarried. I do not care what people say about me, but I do not want your reputation damaged." Her broken smile appeared. "I think my reputation has already been damaged beyond repair, Mr. Douglas, but I appreciate your concern." "I have been thinking," he said slowly, the words forming even as he spoke them, surprising himself. "What if we got married?" She stared at him, her face going pale. "What?" "It would just be on paper," he said quickly. "A marriage of convenience. You would have the respectability of being a married woman, and I would have help with the ranch without causing scandal. Nothing would have to change between us. You would keep your room, your privacy. But you would have my name and my protection." "Why would you do that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What would you get out of it?" Ethan considered his answer carefully. The truth was, he had come to care about this broken woman. He thought about her constantly, worried about her when she grew too quiet, felt a fierce protectiveness toward her that went beyond employer and employee. But he could not tell her that. She was not ready to hear it, and he was not sure he was ready to say it. "I get a partner," he said instead. "Someone to help build this ranch into something bigger. Someone to share the burden of running this place. And maybe, if you are willing, someday this could be a real marriage. But only if that is what you want. I would never force that on you." She was quiet for a long time, her hands twisting in her lap. "I do not know if I can ever be a real wife again, Mr. Douglas. I do not know if I have anything left to give to another person." "I am not asking you to give me anything except your trust," he said gently. "You have been through hell, Tessa. I am just offering you a safe place to land while you figure out who you are now. And if I can never figure that out, if I am always this broken, then you will be broken, and I will still consider myself lucky to have you here." She looked at him with those sad brown eyes, and he saw something flicker in their depths, something that might have been the beginning of feeling. "You are a good man, Ethan Douglas." He noticed she used his first name for the first time. It felt significant, like a small victory. "So is that a yes?" he asked. She took a shaky breath. "Yes, I will marry you, but Ethan, I cannot promise you anything beyond that. I cannot promise I will ever be the kind of wife you deserve. Let me worry about what I deserve. You just worry about taking care of yourself." They were married a week later, which brought them to this moment, standing in front of a handful of witnesses, bound together by words and law if not yet by love. After the ceremony, there was a small gathering at the ranch. Ethan had invited a few neighbors, and Tessa had not protested. She moved through the afternoon like a ghost, accepting congratulations with that broken smile, her eyes never quite meeting anyone else's. When everyone had finally left and the sun was setting, Tessa stood in the kitchen washing dishes. Ethan came up beside her, drying the plates she handed him. They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes before she spoke. "Thank you for today," she said quietly. "I know this was not a real wedding, but you made it as nice as you could. You are welcome." He paused, then continued. "Tessa, I want you to know This may have started as a marriage of convenience, but I meant every word I said today. I will honor you, protect you, care for you for as long as you will let me." She turned to look at him, soap suds dripping from her hands. "Why? Why are you so kind to me?" "Because everyone deserves kindness," he said simply. "And because I see you, Tessa. I see the person you are underneath all that pain. I see your strength, your determination, your gentle heart that has been bruised but not broken beyond healing." Tears filled her eyes. "I do not know how to let anyone see me anymore. I have spent so long just trying to survive, trying to get through each day. I do not remember how to do anything else." Ethan set down the dish towel and gently turned her to face him fully. "Then we will figure it out together, one day at a time. There is no rush, no expectation. We have time." "Time," she repeated as if testing the word. "I have not thought about having time in so long. It has all been about just getting through the next minute, the next hour. You have time now, all the time you need." She leaned forward slightly, and for a moment, Ethan thought she might embrace him. But then she seemed to catch herself, pulling back, her walls going up again. "I should finish these dishes." He let her retreat, understanding that trust would take time to build. That night, as he lay in his bed at one end of the hall and she lay in hers at the other end, he thought about the woman who was now his wife. He thought about the long road ahead of them, about the patience it would take to help her heal, about the possibility that she might never fully heal. But he also thought about the small moments of connection they had shared, the way she had looked at him in the kitchen, as if she was beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could find her way back to herself. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. They worked the ranch together, Tessa proving herself to be surprisingly capable with the animals. She had a gentle touch with the horses, and even the most skittish of them would calm under her hands. Ethan loved watching her in those moments, seeing the tension ease from her shoulders, that broken smile replaced by something more genuine, if fleeting. They ate their meals together, talking about the day's work, about the ranch, about anything except the heavy topics that hung between them. At night, they would sit on the porch and slowly, piece by piece, Tessa began to open up more. She told him about her daughter, about the little girl named Caroline who would be 3 years old now. She cried when she talked about her, and Ethan would sit beside her, letting her lean against his shoulder, offering silent comfort. "You think she remembers me?" Tessa asked one night, her voice broken with grief. "I think a child always knows their mother," Ethan said carefully. "Even if she does not remember specifics, she will remember that she was loved. I hope so. I hope she knows I did not want to leave her. I hope she knows I think about her every single day. I am sure she does." Tessa was quiet for a moment, then said something that surprised him. "You would have been a good father." "What makes you say that? The way you are with the animals, the way you are with me. You have a gentle strength about you. That is what children need." "Maybe someday," he said carefully, not wanting to push but unable to help the small hope that bloomed in his chest. She did not respond, but she did not pull away from where she was leaning against him either. 2 months into their marriage, something shifted. Ethan came in from working with the cattle to find Tessa in the kitchen, Flower dusting her dark hair, humming softly to herself. It was the first time he had heard her make music of any kind, and he stopped in the doorway, afraid to break the spell. She looked up and saw him watching. For a moment her face shuddered, but then something seemed to crack inside her. She smiled, and it was not the broken smile he had grown accustomed to. It was small, tentative, but real. "I am making pie," she said. "Apple. I remembered how my grandmother used to make it, and I thought I would try." "It smells wonderful," he said, stepping into the kitchen. "What brought this on?" she shrugged, going back to rolling out the dough. "I do not know. I woke up this morning, and for the first time in months I felt something other than sadness." It was just a little flutter of something, maybe not quite happiness, but maybe the memory of happiness. I wanted to see if I could hold on to it. Ethan felt his heart swell. I am glad. Do not get too excited, she said, but there was a lightness to her voice he had not heard before. It might not last. Tomorrow I might wake up back in that dark place. But today you are here. That is what matters. She paused in her work, looking at him. You really believe that, do not you, that each day can be different? I do. I have seen too much to believe we are stuck being one thing forever. People change, people heal. It just takes time. Time, she repeated again, that word that seemed to hold so much weight for her. We have time. That night, after they finished the pie, which was delicious, they sat on the porch as usual. But instead of the heavy silence or painful conversations, Tessa talked about happy memories. She told him about growing up, about summers running barefoot through the fields, about learning to ride a horse, about the first time she read a book that made her cry. She laughed, and the sound was rusty from disuse but beautiful. Ethan found himself falling for her in that moment, really falling, not just caring about her as someone who needed help, but loving her as a woman, as a partner, as someone he wanted to spend his life knowing. He did not say anything, though. She was not ready to hear it, and he was content to wait. Autumn came to Arkansas with a burst of color. The trees turned gold and red, and the air grew crisp. Ethan and Tessa worked together to prepare the ranch for winter, cutting wood, preserving food, making sure the animals would be comfortable. They moved around each other with an easy familiarity now, anticipating each other's needs, working as a team. One afternoon, they were in the barn fixing a broken stall when Tessa suddenly stopped working. Ethan looked over to see her standing still, staring at nothing, tears streaming down her face. Tessa, what is wrong? Today is Caroline's birthday, she said, her voice breaking. She is 3 years old today, and I am not there. I do not get to see her face when she wakes up, do not get to make her a cake, do not get to hold her. I am here and she is there, and I do not even know if she remembers me. Ethan set down his tools and went to her, pulling her into his arms. She resisted for just a moment before collapsing against him, her body shaking with sobs. He held her tightly, his own eyes burning with tears he would not let fall. He needed to be strong for her. I am sorry, he whispered into her hair. I am so sorry you cannot be with her. But Tessa, you are honoring her by surviving, by trying to build a new life. You are showing her, even if she cannot see it, that you are strong, that you do not give up. That is a gift too. It does not feel like enough, she sobbed. It will never be enough. I know. But it is all you can give right now, and that has to be okay. They stood like that for a long time, Tessa crying out her grief while Ethan held her. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were red and swollen, but there was something different in her face, something resolved. Thank you, she said, for letting me fall apart. You can always fall apart with me, he said. I will help put you back together as many times as you need. She reached up and touched his face, her fingers gentle against his rough skin. How did I get so lucky to find you? I think we found each other, he said. Two broken people who needed someone to understand. Are you broken too? She asked softly. You always seem so strong. I am lonely, he admitted. I have been lonely for so long I almost forgot what it felt like to not be lonely. My mother died and I was alone in this house, alone on this ranch, just going through the motions. Then you came, and suddenly I had a reason to get up in the morning that was not just about survival. I had someone to talk to, someone to care about. You saved me as much as I like to think I saved you, her eyes widened. I had no idea. You always seemed so content. I am content now because of you. She studied his face for a long moment, and he wondered what she saw there. Whatever it was, it made her lean forward and press her lips to his. The kiss was soft, tentative, nothing like their brief wedding kiss. This one held question and answer both, held the possibility of something more. When she pulled back, her cheeks were flushed. "Was that okay?" "More than okay," Ethan said, his heart racing. "But Tessa, I do not want you to feel like you have to do anything. We agreed this marriage could be whatever you needed it to be." "What if I need it to be real?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if I am tired of being broken and want to see if I can be whole again? What if I think maybe I can be happy again with you?" The words hit him like a revelation. "Maybe I can be happy again." She had said it out loud, put voice to the hope he had seen growing in her over the past weeks. "Are you sure?" he asked, needing her to be certain. "I do not want you to rush into anything because you feel grateful or obligated." "I am sure," she said, more firmly. "I am not saying I am healed, Ethan. I am not saying there will not be bad days, days when I cannot get out of bed, days when I cry for Caroline and wish things were different. But I am saying that I want to try. I want to see if I can build something new, something good with you. You have been so patient, so kind. You have given me space to grieve and time to heal. You have never asked for anything from me, but I want to give you something now. I want to give you me, broken pieces and all, and see if maybe we can make something beautiful out of the fragments." Ethan felt his throat tighten with emotion. He cupped her face in his hands, looking into her eyes. "You are already beautiful, Tessa. Every single part of you. And I would be honored to build a life with you, whatever that looks like." This time when they kissed, it was deeper, more certain. It was a promise and a beginning all at once. When they finally pulled apart, Tessa was smiling, and for the first time since he met her, the smile reached her eyes. That night marked a turning point in their marriage. Ethan asked if she wanted to move into his room, and she said yes, though she was nervous. He promised they would take things slowly, that they would only do what she was comfortable with. They lay in bed together, her head on his chest, his arms around her, and talked into the early hours of the morning about their hopes and fears, about the future they might build together. "I am scared," Tessa admitted. "Scared of letting myself be happy, because what if it all falls apart again? What if I lose you like I lost everything else?" "You might," Ethan said honestly. "Life does not come with guarantees, but is not the possibility of happiness worth the risk of pain?" "I do not know," she said. "I am not sure I am that brave." "You are the bravest person I know," he countered. "You survived losing your child, losing your old life, and you are still here, still trying. That takes incredible courage. Or incredible stubbornness," she said with a small laugh. "I will take either one." They made love for the first time a week later. It was gentle and careful, Ethan attuned to every hesitation, every moment of doubt. Tessa cried afterward, but when he asked if she was okay, she nodded. "Happy tears," she said. "I did not think I could feel like this again. Connected to someone, safe with someone. You make me feel safe, Ethan." "You are safe," he promised. "Always." Winter came hard that year, with snow piling up around the ranch and temperatures dropping below freezing. Ethan and Tessa spent long days working to keep the animals safe and warm, and long nights huddled by the fire, wrapped in each other's arms. The isolation of winter could have been oppressive, but instead it felt like a cocoon, a space where they could just be together without the outside world intruding. Tessa still had bad days. There were mornings when Ethan would wake to find her crying silently beside him, and he would hold her until the storm passed. There were days when she could barely speak, weighed down by grief that had not lessened so much as learned to coexist with her other emotions. But there were also good days, increasingly more of them, where she laughed freely, where that broken smile transformed into something whole. One evening in late January, they were sitting by the fire when Tessa said something that surprised him. "I want to write to her, to Caroline." Ethan asked. Yes. I know she will not get the letters, not now. Her grandparents would never allow it, but I want to write to her anyway, tell her about my life, about you, about how I am trying to be the kind of person she could be proud of someday. Maybe when she is older, if she ever wants to find me, I will have these letters to give her. She will know I never stopped thinking about her, never stopped loving her. I think that is a beautiful idea, Ethan said, squeezing her hand. She started that night, sitting at the kitchen table with paper and pen, writing by lamplight. Ethan watched her, seeing the way her face softened as she formed the words, the way the grief in her eyes was mixed now with something like peace. She was learning to carry her loss differently, not as a crushing weight but as a part of herself that she could acknowledge and honor without being destroyed by it. Spring came with a rush of green and warmth. The snow melted, and the ranch came back to life. Ethan and Tessa worked harder than ever, and the ranch prospered under their combined efforts. They hired 2 ranch hands, young men who were good workers and respectful. Tessa had worried about having other people around, about what they would think of her, but the men treated her with deference, calling her Mrs. Douglas and tipping their hats whenever they saw her. In May, Tessa realized she was pregnant. She came to him in the barn, her face pale, her hands shaking as she held them out to him. "Ethan, I need to tell you something." He set down the bridle he was mending, alarmed by her tone. "What is wrong? Are you ill?" "No, I am not ill. I am." She took a deep breath. "I am going to have a baby." For a moment, Ethan could not process the words. Then they hit him all at once, and joy flooded through him so intensely he felt dizzy. "A baby, Tessa, that is wonderful." But she was not smiling. She looked terrified. "What if I cannot do it again? What if I cannot be a good mother because I am still broken? What if something happens? What if they take this baby away too?" He crossed to her in 2 strides, pulling her into his arms. "Nothing is going to happen. No one is going to take this baby, and you are going to be an amazing mother. You already are to Caroline. Just because she is not with you does not mean you failed her. But what if I fail this baby? What if my brokenness damages them? Then we will figure it out together," Ethan said firmly. "Tessa, you are not as broken as you think you are. You have healed so much in the time I have known you. Yes, you still have scars and you probably always will, but scars just mean you survived something. They do not define you." She buried her face in his chest, her body trembling. "I am so scared. I know, but I am here. I am not going anywhere. We are going to do this together." Over the next months, Ethan watched as Tessa cycled through fear and hope, terror and joy. Her body changed, rounding with the baby, and sometimes he would catch her with her hands on her belly, a look of wonder on her face. Other times he would find her crying, overwhelmed by the memories of Caroline, by the fear that history would repeat itself. They talked about names. If it was a girl, Tessa wanted to name her Grace after Ethan's mother. If it was a boy, she suggested Ethan Jr., but he shook his head. "I want him to have his own name, his own identity." "What about Daniel?" "It means God is my judge, and I like the idea of our son being his own man, not judged by anyone else's standards." "Daniel Douglas," Tessa said, testing it out. "I like it. And if it is a girl, are you sure about Grace?" "I am honored you want to name her after my mother. She would have loved you, Tessa. She would have been so proud of the woman you have become." Tessa's eyes filled with tears, but they were happy tears. "I hope so. I hope I can make you both proud. You already have." The baby came in November, a cold evening with snow falling gently outside. Ethan had ridden into town to fetch the midwife, an older woman named Mrs. Harper, who had delivered half the babies in Fort Smith. The labor was long and difficult, and Ethan paced outside the bedroom door, his stomach in knots every time he heard Tessa cry out. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he heard a new sound. A baby's cry, strong and healthy. Mrs. Harper opened the door, smiling. "You can come in now, Mr. Douglas. Meet your son." Ethan stumbled into the room, his eyes immediately finding Tessa. She was propped up in bed, exhausted and sweaty but smiling. In her arms was a tiny bundle, a red-faced infant with a shock of dark hair. "Ethan, meet Daniel," she said softly. He approached the bed slowly, reverently, and looked down at his son. The baby's eyes were closed, his tiny fists waving in the air. Ethan reached out and gently touched one of those fists, marveling as the tiny fingers wrapped around his own. "He is perfect," Ethan whispered. "He is ours," Tessa said, and there was such joy in her voice that it brought tears to Ethan's eyes. "Ethan, he is ours, and no one can take him away." "No one," he confirmed, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "You did so well, Tessa. I am so proud of you." "I did it," she said, as if she could hardly believe it herself. "I was so scared, but I did it. And he is here, and he is healthy, and we are a family." "We are a family," Ethan repeated, the words filling him with a contentment he had never known. Those first weeks with Daniel were exhausting but wonderful. Tessa threw herself into motherhood with a fierceness that took Ethan's breath away. She nursed the baby, changed him, rocked him, sang to him, as if trying to make up for all the time she had lost with Caroline. There were moments when the grief would hit her, when she would hold Daniel and cry for the daughter she could not hold. But there were also moments of pure joy, when she would laugh at Daniel's expressions or coo at him with such love that Ethan fell in love with her all over again. One night when Daniel was about 6 weeks old, Ethan woke to find Tessa's side of the bed empty. He got up and found her in the nursery, sitting in the rocking chair with Daniel asleep in her arms. Tears were streaming down her face. "Tessa, what is wrong?" he asked quietly, kneeling beside the chair. "I was just thinking about Caroline," she said. "Wondering if she ever cries for me, if she ever asks where I am. She would be almost 4 now. I am missing everything. Her first day of school, watching her grow, hearing her laugh. I am here with Daniel and I love him so much, but loving him does not make missing her hurt any less." "I know," Ethan said, reaching up to wipe her tears. "You can love them both, Tessa. Loving Daniel does not mean you are forgetting Caroline." "Sometimes I worry that I am," she admitted. "Sometimes whole hours go by where I do not think about her, and then I feel so guilty." "What kind of mother forgets her child?" "A mother who is surviving," Ethan said firmly. "A mother who is building a life so that if Caroline ever does come looking for you, she will find a strong woman who did not give up, who made something beautiful out of tragedy. You are not forgetting her, Tessa. You are honoring her by living." She looked at him, her eyes searching his face. "Do you really believe that?" "With all my heart." She leaned down and kissed him, soft and sweet. "I love you, Ethan Douglas. I do not think I have ever said that to you, but I do. I love you for your patience, your kindness, your strength. I love you for giving me a reason to keep going when I thought I had none. I love you for Daniel, for this life we have built. I love you." "I love you too," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I have loved you from the moment I saw that broken smile and wanted to do everything in my power to make it whole again. I love you, Tessa. All of you. The broken parts and the healed parts and the parts still healing." They sat there in the nursery, their son sleeping peacefully in her arms, and Ethan thought about how far they had come. From 2 strangers brought together by desperation and kindness to this. A family, a life, a love that had been forged in pain but had become something beautiful. Daniel grew quickly, a happy baby who rarely cried and smiled at everyone. By the time he was 6 months old, he was trying to sit up on his own, his chubby legs kicking with determination. Tessa wrote letters to Caroline regularly, telling her about her baby brother, about the ranch, about the life she wished she could share with both of them. One afternoon in late spring, when Daniel was 8 months old, a rider came to the ranch. Ethan was in the barn when he heard Tessa call his name, her voice urgent. He dropped what he was doing and ran to the house, finding her on the porch, a letter in her hand, her face pale. "What is it? What is wrong?" She thrust the letter at him with shaking hands. "It is from the lawyer I hired in Missouri, the one I asked to keep track of Caroline to make sure she was all right." Ethan took the letter, his heart pounding. He read quickly, his eyes scanning the formal language. When he finished, he looked up at Tessa in shock. "Your husband's parents are both dead," he said slowly. "They died in a fire 2 months ago." "Keep reading," Tessa said, her voice breaking. He looked back at the letter. "Caroline is in an orphanage. The extended family did not want her. She has been there since the fire, and no one has come forward to claim her." Tessa's legs seemed to give out, and she sat down hard on the porch steps. "My baby is in an orphanage. She thinks she has no one. She thinks I abandoned her." Ethan sat beside her, his mind racing. "We can go get her. Tessa, we can bring her home." She looked at him, hope and fear warring in her eyes. "Are you sure? It would mean traveling to Missouri, fighting through whatever legal battles we have to face. It would mean upending our life here." "Our life is wherever you and Daniel and Caroline are," Ethan said firmly. "If we have to go to Missouri and fight for her, then that is what we will do. She is your daughter. She belongs with us." "What if she does not remember me?" Tessa asked, the fear creeping into her voice. "What if she hates me for leaving her? Then we will deal with that together. But Tessa, you have to try. You will never forgive yourself if you do not try to bring her home." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "You are right. We have to go get her. We have to bring her home." They made arrangements quickly. The ranch hands agreed to stay and take care of the place while they were gone. Mrs. Harper, the midwife who had become a friend to Tessa, agreed to help if there were any problems. 2 days later, Ethan, Tessa, and Daniel set out for Missouri. The journey took over a week, traveling by train and stagecoach with a baby in tow. Daniel was a good traveler, content to be held and cooed at, but Tessa grew more anxious with every mile. She barely slept, her mind clearly on the daughter she had not seen in almost 2 years. When they finally reached the small town where Caroline was being kept, Tessa was pale and shaking. They went straight to the orphanage, a grim brick building that made Ethan's heart sink. Inside, they were greeted by a stern-faced woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Peterson, the matron. "We are here about Caroline Reynolds," Tessa said, her voice barely steady. "I am her mother." Mrs. Peterson's eyebrows rose. "Her mother? We were told she had no living parents. Her father is dead, but I am very much alive. There were circumstances that forced us apart, but I have come to take her home." The matron looked skeptical. "I will need to see proof of your relationship to the child, and even then, there are procedures to follow." "I have all the documentation," Ethan said, pulling out the papers they had prepared. "Birth records, marriage certificate, everything you need to confirm that Tessa is Caroline's mother." Mrs. Peterson took the papers and examined them carefully. Finally, she nodded. "Everything seems to be in order. But I should warn you, Caroline has had a difficult time. She barely speaks, and when she does, it is only to ask about her mother. She has been told repeatedly that you were not coming, that you had abandoned her." Tessa's face crumpled. "Can I see her?" "Please, I need to see my daughter." "Of course, follow me." They walked down a long hallway, their footsteps echoing on the wooden floor. Mrs. Peterson stopped outside a door and looked back at them. "She is in here with the other young girls. I will have her brought out." The matron went inside, and Ethan put his arm around Tessa, feeling her whole body trembling. A few moments later, the door opened again, and a small girl was led out. She was thin, too thin, with tangled blonde curls and eyes that were wary and sad. She was wearing a plain gray dress that was too big for her, and she clutched a ragged doll to her chest. Tessa made a sound, something between a sob and a gasp. "Caroline!" The little girl looked up at the sound of her name. Her eyes widened as she took in Tessa's face. For a moment she just stared. Then, in a voice that was rusty from disuse, she whispered, "Mama." "Yes, baby," Tessa said, dropping to her knees so she was at eye level with her daughter. "It is Mama. I am so sorry, Caroline. I am so sorry I could not come sooner. But I am here now, and I am never leaving you again." Caroline dropped her doll and ran, throwing herself into Tessa's arms with a force that almost knocked her over. Tessa caught her, holding her so tightly Ethan worried she might hurt her. Both of them were crying, Tessa saying over and over, "I am sorry, I am so sorry, I love you, I never stopped loving you." Caroline pulled back just enough to look at Tessa's face. "They said you did not want me. They said you gave me away." "They lied," Tessa said fiercely. "I wanted you every single day. They took you from me, but I never stopped being your mama. I never stopped loving you." "You came back," Caroline said, as if she could not quite believe it. "You came back for me." "Of course I came back. You are my daughter. I will always come back for you." Caroline buried her face in Tessa's neck, her small body shaking with sobs. Ethan felt his own eyes burning as he watched them, this reunion that had seemed impossible just a few weeks ago. He looked down at Daniel in his arms, at this baby who would now have a big sister, and felt a deep sense of rightness. This was how it was supposed to be. This was their family. It took 2 days to get all the paperwork sorted out, but finally they were able to officially take Caroline. Mrs. Peterson seemed relieved to see her go, commenting that the child had been difficult, refusing to eat properly or play with the other children. Tessa bristled at that, but Ethan squeezed her hand, reminding her that what mattered now was moving forward. Caroline clung to Tessa the entire journey back to Arkansas. She was suspicious of Ethan at first, eyeing him warily, but when she saw how gently he handled Daniel, how he spoke to Tessa with respect and love, she slowly began to warm to him. By the time they reached Fort Smith, she was letting Ethan carry her when she got tired, and she even smiled when he made funny faces at her. Bringing Caroline home to the ranch was like watching a flower slowly open. At first she was afraid of everything, jumping at sudden noises, hiding behind Tessa whenever the ranch hands came around. But gradually, with patience and love, she began to trust that this was real, that she was safe, that no one was going to take her away again. Tessa was transformed by having Caroline back. The shadow that had always lingered in her eyes lifted. She was still careful, still protective, but there was a lightness to her now. She would laugh as she chased Caroline through the house, would sing as she tucked her in at night, would sit for hours just watching her children play, as if she could not quite believe they were both really there. One evening, about a month after Caroline had come home, Ethan found Tessa on the porch. Caroline and Daniel were both asleep inside, and she was sitting in the rocking chair, a small smile on her face. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked, sitting beside her. "I was just thinking about how much has changed," she said. "A year and a half ago I was broken. I could not imagine ever being happy again. I had lost everything that mattered to me, and I thought that was just how my life would be from now on. Then I met you, and you showed me that maybe I could survive. And then you gave me Daniel, and then you helped me get Caroline back. You gave me a family again, Ethan. You gave me a reason to be happy." "You did that yourself," Ethan said. "I just gave you a safe place to heal. You did all the hard work." She reached over and took his hand. "Maybe I can be happy again. That is what I told myself on our wedding day. I did not believe it then. I was just saying words. But now, sitting here with my children asleep inside and my husband beside me, I realize it is true. I am happy, Ethan. Really, truly happy. Not happy without scars, not happy without bad days, but happy nonetheless. I am happy too, Ethan said, bringing her hand to his lips. Happier than I ever thought I could be. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the ranch. Then Tessa said something that surprised him. I think I want another baby. Ethan looked at her in surprise. Really? Are you sure? I am sure. I feel like our family is almost complete, but not quite. I want one more child, one more little piece of us. Then we will have one more, Ethan said, pulling her close. As many as you want, she laughed. Let us start with one more and see how it goes. Time passed quickly on the ranch. Caroline flourished, growing from the scared, silent child they had brought home into a happy, chattering girl who loved helping with the horses and teaching Daniel how to walk. Daniel grew into a rambunctious toddler with his mother's brown eyes and his father's smile. And Tessa, true to her wish, became pregnant again. This pregnancy was easier than the first. Tessa was not plagued by the same fears, secure in the knowledge that this baby would be loved and wanted and safe. When her time came, in the spring when Caroline was 5 and Daniel was 2, she gave birth to twin girls. Ethan stood in the bedroom, looking down at his wife and the 2 tiny babies in her arms, and felt his heart expand with a love so big it almost hurt. Twins, he said, still amazed. We have twins. We have twins, Tessa agreed, smiling up at him. 2 beautiful girls. What should we name them? They had discussed names, but had not decided on anything definite. Now, looking at his daughters, Ethan said, what about Grace for one, like we planned before? And for the other, what about Hope? Because that is what you gave me. Hope that life could be good again. Tears filled Tessa's eyes. Grace and Hope. Those are perfect names, Ethan. Perfect. Caroline was thrilled to have 2 baby sisters. She would sit by their cradle for hours, singing to them, telling them stories, being the big sister she was meant to be. Daniel was less impressed, wanting to know when they would be old enough to play with, but he was gentle with them in his toddler way. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. With the help of the ranch hands and Tessa's excellent management of the household accounts, they expanded their herd and even started breeding horses. Ethan built on an addition to the house, more bedrooms for the growing family, and a larger kitchen where Tessa could cook the meals she loved making. Years passed in a blur of happy chaos. Caroline grew into a lovely young woman, smart and kind, who loved to read and help her mother with the younger children. Daniel became a strong boy who loved working with his father on the ranch, learning everything Ethan could teach him about ranching and horses. Grace and Hope were inseparable, 2 halves of a whole, with Grace being the more serious one and Hope living up to her name with her sunny disposition. Through it all, Ethan and Tessa's love only deepened. They had their disagreements, as all couples do, but they always talked through them, always came back to the foundation of respect and care they had built their marriage on. Tessa still had bad days, days when the memories of those lost years with Caroline would overwhelm her. But Ethan was always there, steady and strong, reminding her that they had made it through the worst and come out the other side. One evening when Caroline was 15, Daniel was 12, and the twins were 9, the family was sitting together on the porch after supper. It had become a tradition, this evening time together where they would talk about their days and just enjoy being near each other. Caroline was reading aloud from a book, her voice clear and expressive. Daniel was whittling a piece of wood, trying to make a horse like his father had taught him. The twins were playing with their dolls, creating elaborate stories. Tessa sat in her rocking chair, mending a shirt, a contented smile on her face. Ethan watched them all, his family, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. "What are you thinking about, Papa?" Grace asked, noticing his expression. "I am thinking about how lucky I am," Ethan said honestly. "To have all of you, to have this life. I am thinking about how sometimes the best things come from the hardest times." Tessa looked up from her mending, meeting his eyes. In her gaze, he saw the echo of that broken smile from so many years ago, transformed now into something whole and real. She had healed, not completely because some wounds never fully close, but enough. Enough to be happy, to love and be loved, to build a life worth living. "I was thinking the same thing," she said softly, "about how far we have come." "Tell us the story again," Hope said, setting down her doll. "About how you and Mama met." Ethan laughed. They had told this story many times, but the children never tired of hearing it. "Well, it was a hot summer day in 1878, and I was in town getting supplies." As he told the story, with Tessa occasionally adding details he forgot, he watched his children's faces. Caroline knew the story by heart, but she still listened with a soft smile, grateful for the parents who had fought to be together. Daniel listened with the earnestness of a boy who wanted to grow up to be just like his father. The twins listened with wide eyes, still young enough to find magic in the tale. When he got to the part about the wedding, about how Tessa had stood beside him with that broken smile, Tessa interrupted. "But then your papa, he was so patient with me. He gave me time to heal, time to find myself again. And slowly I did. I learned that maybe I could be happy again, and I was right. I am happy." "Are you still broken, Mama?" Grace asked with the bluntness of a child. Tessa considered the question seriously. "I think we are all a little broken, sweetheart. Life breaks us in different ways, but being broken does not mean we cannot be happy. It just means we have to work a little harder at it, and we have to have people who love us help us put the pieces back together." "Like Papa helped you," Hope said. "Like Papa helped me," Tessa agreed, reaching over to take Ethan's hand. "And like I helped him. We helped each other." That night after the children were in bed, Ethan and Tessa lay together in their room. Tessa was nestled against his side, her head on his chest, their fingers intertwined. "You ever regret it?" Tessa asked quietly. "Taking a chance on a broken stranger?" "Never," Ethan said immediately. "Not for a single moment. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Tessa. You and our children, this life we have built. I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Even the hard parts, especially the hard parts. They made us who we are." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I never thought I would get Caroline back. I had accepted that she was lost to me forever. But you made me believe that maybe, just maybe, I could have that piece of my heart returned. And you made it happen. You helped me get her back." "We got her back together," Ethan corrected. "It was not just me. You were the one who never gave up hoping, even when hope seemed foolish." "I love you," she said, the words coming easily now after so many years. "I love you so much, Ethan Douglas. I love you too, Tessa Douglas, forever." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, two people who had found each other when they needed it most and built something beautiful from the broken pieces of their lives. More years passed. Caroline grew up and married a kind young man who reminded Ethan of himself at that age. They settled on a nearby ranch, and soon Ethan and Tessa were grandparents to a beautiful baby girl Caroline named Tessa, after her mother. Tessa cried when she heard the name, overwhelmed by the honor and by the full-circle nature of it. Daniel took over more and more of the ranch operations as Ethan grew older, proving himself to be as capable as his father. He courted a school teacher from town, a smart woman who loved books as much as Caroline did, and they planned to marry in the spring. The twins, Grace and Hope, were 17 now, on the cusp of womanhood, still inseparable but developing their own distinct personalities. Grace wanted to go to college back east, to study medicine. A bold dream for a woman in 1895, but one that Ethan and Tessa fully supported. Hope was more interested in staying close to home, in learning the ranch business and eventually taking over from Daniel. One summer evening, as the sun was setting over the ranch, Ethan and Tessa sat on the porch as they had done for nearly 20 years. Ethan was 53 now, his hair graying at the temples, his hands marked with the wear of decades of hard work. Tessa was 46, fine lines around her eyes and mouth, her dark hair streaked with silver. But when she smiled at him, Ethan still saw the young woman who had walked toward him in that faded white dress, the woman who had said maybe she could be happy again. "We did it," Tessa said softly, looking out over the ranch at the life they had built. "We actually did it." "Did what?" Ethan asked, though he thought he knew what she meant. "Built a life. Raised a family. Found happiness in the broken pieces. I remember standing in this very spot on our wedding day, thinking I would never be whole again. Thinking I would never understand what it meant to truly live instead of just survive. But I do now. Because of you, because of our children, because of all of this. I understand what it means to be happy again." "You taught me that too," Ethan said. "I was so lonely before you came. I did not realize how much I needed someone until you were there. You saved me as much as I like to think I saved you." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat in comfortable silence, watching as the sky turned brilliant shades of orange and pink. In the distance, they could hear their children's voices, Grace and Hope arguing good-naturedly about something, Daniel talking to the ranch hands about the next day's work. "You think Caroline remembers those years she was away?" Tessa asked suddenly. It was a question she still asked sometimes, even after all this time. "I think she remembers," Ethan said carefully. "But I also think she remembers coming home, remembers being loved, remembers building a life here. The bad memories are there, but they are balanced by all the good ones we have made since. I hope so. I hope all our children remember the good more than the bad." "They will," Ethan assured her, "because there has been so much good, and there had been so much good that sometimes Ethan had to stop and marvel at it, at how different his life was from what he had imagined it would be. He had thought he would grow old alone on this ranch, a solitary figure working until his body gave out. Instead, he had a wife he loved more than life itself, children who made him proud every day, and grandchildren who were beginning to carry on the family legacy. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Tessa said one more thing. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me when I was invisible. For believing I could be whole when I was broken. For giving me time and space and love. For helping me find myself again. For everything." Ethan turned to look at her, this woman who had transformed his life, who had taken his loneliness and filled it with love and laughter and purpose. "Thank you for letting me love you, for trusting me with your broken pieces, for building this life with me. For saying yes that day in town and yes again when I asked you to marry me. For choosing happiness even when it was hard. For everything." They kissed, soft and sweet, a kiss that held 2 decades of love and trust and partnership. When they pulled apart, Tessa was smiling, and it was the smile Ethan loved most, the one that lit up her whole face, the one that had replaced that broken smile from so long ago. "Come on," she said, standing and offering him her hand. "Let us go inside. The evening is getting cold." Ethan took her hand, letting her pull him to his feet. Together they walked into the house, into the warmth and light and love they had created. Behind them, the porch stood empty, the rocking chairs still moving slightly from where they had been sitting, evidence of the life that happened there every evening. Inside, The family gathered around the dining table for their evening ritual of tea and conversation. Caroline had come over with little Tessa, and the baby was being passed around, cooed over, loved. Daniel was telling a story about one of the horses that had everyone laughing. Grace was arguing with Hope about whether she should really go east for school, with Hope insisting her sister should follow her dreams. The house was full of noise and life and love, exactly as it should be. Ethan caught Tessa's eye across the table, and she smiled at him, that whole unbroken smile that never failed to make his heart skip a beat. In that smile, he saw their entire journey, from broken strangers to life partners, from two people just trying to survive to a family that thrived. "Maybe I can be happy again," she had said all those years ago, more a question than a statement. Now, looking at her surrounded by the family they had built, the life they had created, Ethan knew the answer was not maybe. It was yes. She was happy. They both were. And that happiness, hard-won and deeply felt, was the greatest gift they could have ever given each other. As the evening wore on and the family eventually dispersed, with Caroline taking baby Tessa home and the twins heading up to bed, Ethan and Tessa prepared for their own night. They moved around each other with the ease of long practice, comfortable in their routines, in their companionship. When they finally lay in bed, Tessa curled against Ethan's side as she always did. He thought about everything that had led them to this moment. The pain, the loss, the loneliness, the fear, but also the hope, the healing, the love, the joy. All of it had been necessary to bring them here, to create this life they shared. "Ethan," Tessa murmured, half asleep. "Yes, I am glad you saw me that day. I am glad you took a chance on me. I am glad, too. Now sleep, love. Tomorrow is a new day." "A happy day," she said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "A happy day," he agreed, and it was. Tomorrow would be a happy day, and the day after that, and the day after that. There would be challenges, certainly. There would be days when old wounds ached and old fears resurfaced. But they would face those days together, just as they had faced everything else. Because that was what love was, Ethan thought as sleep began to claim him. It was not about never being broken. It was about finding someone who would help you put the pieces back together, who would stand beside you on the hard days and celebrate with you on the good ones. It was about choosing each other, again and again, through everything life threw at you. He had chosen Tessa, that broken woman with the sad eyes and the fractured smile. And she had chosen him, the lonely cowboy who needed someone to share his life with. Together, they had built something beautiful, something lasting, something that would endure long after they were gone, carried on by their children and their children's children. As Ethan drifted off to sleep, his last thought was one of profound gratitude. Gratitude for that hot summer day in 1878 when he had seen a woman in need and offered his help. Gratitude for every moment since, the good and the bad, because all of it had led to this. A life well lived, a love deeply felt, a family richly blessed. The cowboy had married the bride with the broken smile, and together they had discovered that happiness was not something lost forever. It was something that could be rebuilt, piece by piece, day by day, choice by choice. And in that rebuilding, in that choosing, they had found not just happiness, but joy, not just survival, but a life worth living. In the darkness of their bedroom, surrounded by the silence of the ranch they had built together, Ethan and Tessa slept peacefully. Two souls who had found each other when they needed it most, two hearts that had learned to beat as one. Their story was one of heartache and healing, of brokenness and restoration, of despair and hope. But most of all, it was a story of love, the kind of love that transforms, that redeems, that makes all things new. And they lived happily ever after in the truest, deepest sense of those words. Not in a fairy tale way where nothing ever went wrong, but in the real, messy, beautiful way of two people committed to loving each other through whatever life brought. The broken smile had become whole. The maybe had become yes. And the lonely cowboy and the grieving widow had become a family, a legacy, a love story that would be told on that porch for generations to come.